Coulrophobia, fear of clowns. Dementophobia, fear of insanity. Domatophobia, fear of houses or being in a house. Meranthrophobia, fear of being bound. Chronophobia, fear of time. Hadephobia, fear of hell. Thanatophobia, fear of death. Eric Till's 1992 made-for-TV true crime thriller To Catch a Killer prominently features what has to be Brian Dennehy's most ferocious performance ever as the forever infamous John Wayne Gacy. It is a film that capitalizes on all the aforementioned phobias and fears, and many, many more. Remember B. Dalton Bookseller? I recall going into one at the Topanga Plaza when I was in my mid-teens and immediately heading towards the true crime section for the first time. There they were, all the classics, in big, bold, red-letter titles. Helter Skelter, Wise Guy, In Cold Blood, The Stranger Beside Me, and one simply entitled Serial Killers. Ooh, that was the one I bought, because I wanted to get to know them all in one sitting. Maybe it wasn't the most ideal reading, since I still had overdue reports for school to complete on books like Orwell's Animal Farm and God Help Me, Hemingway's The Pearl. But fuck it, I had to find out who the hell the fat guy from Chicago was who dressed up like a kiddie party clown named Pogo and buried young men under a crawl space in his suburban house of horrors. What? He was a pillar of the community who posed for snapshots with Rosalind Carter? Get the fuck out of here, John Wayne Gacy. Oh, God, I'm John Wayne Gacy, and I'm from Chicago. Ah, jeez. What I love most about To Catch a Killer is that it absolutely puts you on the detective's team. Michael Riley's Detective Joe Kozenzak literally bends over backwards in physically painful ways to nail the local construction magnate for multiple murder. But John Gacy does not want to make himself a killer that's easy to catch. And that's why this is less a film about a sadistic lunatic on the prowl than it is about the hunt. Gacy's the smug, juicy, gigantic prey, and Kozenzak is, well, frankly, the Elmer Fudd here. And that's not his fault. No one suspects John as being anything but a popular, well-meaning businessman. There's little to no cooperation from the city's officials to crack this sick seducer of simpletons. Gacy relentlessly pummels the police department with threats of lawsuits. Kozenzak himself is disrespected time and time again by not only his superiors, but Gacy as well, who dismisses our mustachioed hero as a Pollock countless times. Is it any wonder Kozenzak had to resort to always unnerving Margot Kidder as an eccentric psychic to save the day? Homicide investigations are tricky business. My father was a cop who studied forensic pathology, and I have the honor of possessing his notes from 1969 through 1970. I like how I felt like I was sitting in the cars in the cold at night with the cops outside of John Gacy's house around Christmas time. How I just wanted to be home with my family instead of waiting to see if this demon was for real or not, based on the willful deductions of a tiny Polish man and a pussy tickler. I was so uncomfortably riveted watching John be inside, where it was warm, wooing awkward young men with liquor and pool and handcuff games, right under the nose and watchful eyes of the staked-out plainclothers outside. It disturbed me how ballsy Gacy was with his prey, practically dangling imminent danger like a blood-stained lion circling a pack of zebras in front of a safari jeep, the jeep being full of windy city wiseacres, hardened by their devotion to the law, who had seen it all and just wanted to shoot the damn beast and save these young, stupid, stripy studs from the fate of maggots eating out their assholes well beneath Gacy's floorboards. But it was not an easy investigation. In fact, it was one of the most complex of all time, and it was fast-paced. Brian Dennehy earned an Emmy nod for his performance, and it could not be more well-deserved. He is terrifying, a dark god clad in leather blazers and bourbon breath. He's so full of ruse and lies you can't take your eyes off him because he's selling the truth so hard that he's a misunderstood man of innocence. Riley does a fantastic job, too. Try to forgive his silly little mustache. And the whole thing kind of takes on a David versus Goliath vibe by the third act. Speaking of third acts, To Catch a Killer is long. Very long. It requires a lot of patience. The pacing is slow at times, but it's deeply involved. There's a lot to follow here. And I found myself rewinding a few times because my thoughts would start to drift towards wondering how authentic this all was. Word is, it's pretty damn close based on true events. And when I say rewinding, I mean dragging my finger in reverse on my iPad. Because you see, you can't seem to find this movie anywhere but on YouTube. Unideally transferred and broken up into 2 parts. At least there's no commercials for Colgate. Believe me, I've looked for the film everywhere over the years since I first saw it when it initially aired. You can buy it on Amazon if you'd like, but then you'd be spending over $150 on a DVD. It's basically out of print, which is a total shame because it's really strong work of true crime, novel-like television, and Brian Dennehy definitely deserves better. John Wayne Gacy raped and murdered 33 boys and young men. In Japan, 33 is a sign carrying misfortune because it says Sarzan, which also means misfortune without a way out. Numerophobia, fear of numbers.
Max Cook, thanks a lot, man. That was excellent. Excellent job, man.
Very nice.
Yeah, that was very good, man.
And thanks for pronouncing it zebras. And thank you for using the word mustachioed.
You will.
Yeah, and thank you for coming up with, like, dozens of phobias that I was unaware of.
Fascinating.
It is fascinating.
I was on a phobia frenzy. What's that, Adam?
I said now you have new things you can fear.
Great. Do you have a fear? Do you have a fear of clowns, Max?
No.
No. What I want to ask you though, listen. After listening to that intro, you have notes from your father's, like he was on stakeouts.
No, well, a few, but he was basically a rookie cop. But when he was in school, he took forensic pathology and classes like that at Lansing Community College.
Gotcha.
For his cop education.
And you have these notes?
I have the notes. My grandma, his mom, my beloved late Grandma Betty, saved the notes. So they're deep in storage, but I remember reading them.
That's really fascinating. What is going on with this movie, Max? Why is it on our plate? You know, you text me to watch it, and then I said, you know what? I'm going to watch it, and then we're going to get online and talk about it because it's something I hadn't seen this probably since sometime in the 90s. I put it on, and I'm immediately in, and it doesn't let go. And you're right, it is a long film. It's like 3 hours long. But it's all meat, dude. Like, there's nothing in here that sucks, you know? And there's one of your favorite sounds, Max.
I love when the sirens are coming.
They are definitely coming. But dude, Jesus, stop!
Oh, that's right outside your place, Tom. You're fucked.
I know. They're coming to get me. It's over for me. But, dude.
Guys, tell the world my story. Okay, Tom, we'll try.
Max, would you, if that was the case, would you play me in a telemovie, a la Brian Dennehy doing John Gacy?
Absolutely,
only if I could
but
play Joe.
Adam, can you do Joe?
Yeah,
I could work on it, guys. I could try to come up with something.
And for everyone out there who listens and loves Joe, Max, he bailed out on us today.
Yeah, hey guys, I don't care about talking to Brian Dennehy and Michael Who. I gotta go eat a chicken sandwich and do graphic design. Sorry, click.
Joe? We've got it's your show and we've got Dennehy and Riley.
Yeah, hey guys.
Yeah, but you know what Joe's gonna do? He's gonna be like,
oh, hey Tom, I was thinking maybe you could send Brian Dennehy my screenplay. Yeah. It's all too clear that Brian Dennehy wants to play a vampire, so I'll write a...
Well, no, it's just an award-winning short filmmaker now.
Yes, he is. He's doing well. That film is doing well, Max. Have you had a chance to see it?
Yeah, I think we should do a mini episode on that thing.
Now, that would be strange, and I should do the intro.
Absolutely, you should.
You know what? I'm gonna watch that today. I have not seen it. I'd like to watch it today.
You should. It's not long.
I'll try to. Yeah, I'll get it. So yeah, it's like 10 minutes, right?
Send me the link. I'm gonna watch it today.
Okay,
and then we'll talk about Adam and I will talk about our movie Gramps Beneath the Surface on another special. Why can't we talk about our movies?
And I'll even pull up my movie Jimbo Needs a Drink. And we'll have a whole cutting room movie podcast devoted to our films.
I love it.
I think it's a good idea, Max.
Thank you.
Now,
but Billy's not involved.
Can I ask you guys questions about To Catch a Killer?
Yes, let's get back to that.
These are legitimate questions I have.
Okay.
And maybe you guys will have the answers.
Okay.
First of all, and Max, you probably know this, how accurate was the psychic stuff based on the books you've read and the information you have? That's all true.
Psychics were, I think there was even more than one.
Really?
But the scenes were stretched out in the film. The psychic stuff was stretched out.
But like she called where that last body was found, and she called where the bodies were arranged under the crawl space. That's all accurate.
Yeah, I mean they were moving so fast that they were pulling out all the guns.
Oh,
that's amazing.
Now, why? I should have asked this of Dennehy and Riley, but how come they didn't play up the family angle of Gacy? They never really show his wife, his kids. He's always at home. He feels like it's almost like he's a bachelor.
That's it's so funny you say that, Adam, because I didn't think anything of it while watching To Catch a Killer, but I was obviously had a 2 or 3 day infatuation with John Gacy, so I was trying to get anything I can about the man, including the film they made a couple of years ago, Gacy, with Mark Holden, Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Sure.
And they do that in that film. As a matter of fact, it's so weird because like the Gacy film with Holden is he plays him like a complete and total buffoon. They play up the family angle big time. The wife is there, the kids are there, the mother's there. But you're right, man. In To Catch a Killer, none of this is really even mentioned, right?
Yeah.
You think he's like a bachelor.
Yeah, they really just avoid that whole family thing completely.
Yeah, that was very strange, Max. I mean, I don't know why they took that angle. I mean, it works fine, I guess, but geez. Yeah, I mean, it's something that's very important because when I'm watching Gacy, it's like, now this is even more extraordinary that he's doing this with people living in the house.
Exactly, and that he's keeping it from them. And was it willful ignorance on their behalf, or were they really in the dark? These are
my only guess for To Catch a Killer is that they probably wanted to just completely concentrate on Gacy and the detective,
the cat and mouse aspect of it,
right? And just leave it at that. Let that play out, and just leave that behind a wall somewhere because it doesn't happen in To Catch a Killer. And I don't even know, with the way they did To Catch a Killer, I don't even know if that angle might kind of take away from what they're really trying to get at.
Sure.
So that would be my answer to the question, Max. I don't know if you want to have any input on this.
I think Adam brings up an amazing point. But yeah, I just think for the economy of the story, it's so much more about the investigation than it is about Gacy himself. If it was just a Gacy movie and it was just him going home to his family, I mean, that would be equally interesting. I would be more than willing to watch a 5-hour version of that film if they could incorporate all those elements. But yeah, I think also it was more ominous just to have John kind of on his own. I mean, that is a big liberty, though.
It is, man, because it totally changes everything about his criminality,
Well, he had a dog.
That's true.
And was the dog interviewed by the cops ever?
No, probably not, because dogs aren't human, Max. I don't know if you're aware of this.
Can you smell dead bodies? Barf! Bark twice for yes, bark once for no. Barf, barf! You can smell dead bodies. Barf! Oh, fuck this.
This dog is not being helpful at all.
Well, the dog shits a lot, so the cop is misconstruing the stink of shit, dog shit, for dead bodies.
Yo, Adam, were you into this, man? I mean, you've obviously seen this before.
Tell him how you watched it.
I saw this movie actually when it I remember watching it on TV when it came out.
Right.
And I hadn't seen it since. I watched it again, and I'll tell you, at first, it was hard for me to get into it because even though I am not like one of these goddamn kids, television and movies, modern movies and television has definitely changed so dramatically that the slow pace, the lack of the violence and the gore and the in-your-face of it all, at first, I missed it. At first, it's like, my God, I've been watching this movie for 45 minutes, and it's people standing around talking.
Right.
And this is supposed to be a horrific event or a horrific story. But that didn't last too long because pretty soon the performances were so amazing, and as the guys pointed out, the direction was so amazing, and I just got so caught into the cat and mouse game and how Joe just absolutely had some kind of gut instinct and managed to build his team of people that had his back and saw it all the way through. He was just absolutely on a mission.
It's funny. It's funny, Adam, because they were talking. Michael and Brian were both talking about how it's that tactic of like pretty much putting all this pressure on someone to just cave in, and fall, which is great. I'm sure it's a great tactic, but what I worry about is that like the cop's instinct is wrong, and some poor soul is like being harassed by police.
Well, that happens all the time, too.
Yeah, it does. And, because they were kind of like praising the tactic in a way, and I wanted to say, hey, look, man, I mean, this is a tactic that could also work against somebody, like the innocent, because cops have, hey, they can be wrong. I mean, it's true. But what's also funny, Max, is Brian was really funny because I asked him about how he got into the mind of Gacy, and it's just like, to me, it's like Brian was just like, it's just another day in the park. I read a book, I get in front of the camera and I do my thing.
You got 20 hours to prepare.
Exactly.
Acting.
Yeah, that's what he's saying, and it's amazing that he could, he's just one of those guys, Max and Adam, that could probably walk onto any set and just turn it on, pretty much no matter what it is, right?
Oh, I bet. I mean, this guy's been doing this forever. He, like very few actors, he can equally play just the sweetest teddy bear of a guy to the most horrifically evil. Obviously, his character in First Blood. I don't know if you guys ever saw the TV movie. It was called In Broad Daylight.
No.
Also based on
I remember In Broad Daylight.
I think you guys would really like that one. It's based on a true story about a small town who this guy and his family were just bullies, is the only way to describe it. Just absolute in your face.
Really?
He held the town hostage. I'm not saying literally, but by his nature, his bullying. And the entire town banded together and took care of business. They took the law into their own hands. And it's all based on a true story. And he is terrifying in that, the way that he is in Gacy. He's just a big brute and a big bully and is just a scary dude.
Yo, and that's the way he is in First Blood. He's like that in First Blood, too.
First Blood. Absolutely. Yeah. Just a scary, intimidating guy. But then, I remember this, guys. I watched a sitcom from the early 80s that my family watched. I think it was only on for maybe a year, called A Star in the Family, which it was an early 80s 3-camera old school sitcom where he played the dad, and he had a 16-year-old daughter who was like a country western singer. I guess it was sort of like a Hannah Montana before Hannah Montana. And he just played the affable, lovable dad in this sitcom.
That's amazing. Yeah, that he could go from like Cocoon to First Blood or vice versa.
Great actor.
Yeah.
And there is that moment. We touched on this when we were talking to him. At the end of that film where the cops are outside and he's got the kid in handcuffs and he is just talking to the kid and something, you just see it and, looking at him as an actor, it washes over him, and it goes from this willful desire to be menacing and to kill to almost this like instinctual biological predator kind of thing where he is just in a different place. And that to me is more horrific than anything that could have been achieved with blood or violence, or if anything had actually even happened. Just seeing that this is a guy that just could turn into something else, turn into an animal.
Right.
That was horrific. I mean, he was amazing in that moment.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's an extraordinary performance, man, and I am blown away by how good this freaking TV movie is. And it was interesting to hear how much they applauded Eric Till, the director of this little film. You know, I mean, it's amazing. Max Dennehy also talked about the darkness to acting and how he's been able to avoid having that happen to him. He mentioned Philip Hoffman. You know, we all know stories, about Heath Ledger and so on and so forth. Acting can be in an extremely dark place. You have to think that he's one of the lucky ones that could, turn shit off like a switch, man.
Oh, absolutely. Adam and I have a very dear mutual friend named Brett Pearsons who wrote a play called Stranger that I was the lead in along with him and his ex-wife. And it was such I basically play a serial killer, whatever, but even on my shitty theater level,
right.
I couldn't shake it. I got to the point where I was sitting outside their house because I'm a stalker. I stalk this couple. And I would drive around at night and wait for them to get home and watch them leave their cars and go into their apartment. And they had no idea. And I didn't tell them until after the production. Well, it totally freaked Jenny out, the wife. But Brett, he totally got it because he's just he's a lot more crazy than I am as far as that. But it's mellowed out over the years. But
he is. I mean, he's a method actor very much the same way. Like he absorbs. I could see him understanding that because he gets into the parts that deeply as well.
Yeah, but it's just like, here's your buddy outside watching you and your wife go in. You should have seen his face lit up. Not, how dare you? Oh, that's awesome. And I've done a lot of plays with Brett where we live it. And Adam's done plays. I mean, we're all just kind of living it, and it is a lot of work. But it's so funny because there's another actor that we've all worked with named Dean Young, who was a very, very intense guy. And he was that guy who, if you showed up to the theater ready to do the show that night to have a good time, there's that dude, punching holes in walls and brooding and, getting in the zone. It's just like there's so many different temperaments and styles you have to negotiate. And a guy like Denny, he's like, yeah, fuck it, I'm just showing up, doing my thing, and I'm out.
It's amazing. Yep. It's amazing.
And I love how... Well, go ahead.
I really thought that he would pretty much, give us something where he did something extraordinary to get into Gacy. But to him, like I said, it was just like, I just fucking read a book.
Yep.
It's funny, man. This is too funny. I mean,
he's yeah.
You're an actor. I mean, do you let shit linger on with you sometimes? When playing a character?
Of course.
Even
in voiceover.
And you bring it home.
Oh, yeah, but that's why I had to ask Brian if he was happy. And that happy thing kept coming up, and I love how he said you choose to be happy, because you wake up every day happy. Or you choose to be happy or not, but most people are fucking miserable or whatever. I know what he said, and I'm not paraphrasing, but are you kidding me? I mean, even when I used to get really into making the videos, even if it was the Tony Soprano videos or whatever.
Right.
Even the voiceover stuff, it all depends. Like, I will absolutely bring it home, and I will need time to shake it off.
Wow.
Especially when I used to do a lot of really intense theater. That was tough. Because I'm always playing basically crazy people. I played a guy who cut his own tongue out in a play with Adam, and it's just a lot of energy, a lot of dark energy. And I admire a guy like Dennehy who's can just shake it off.
Yeah, because
that doesn't.
He said something wonderful. I'm sorry, Max. I keep doing this. He said something wonderful about Hoffman, about how this is a guy that leaves pieces of himself on the stage every single night, and he says that that's a really dark place to be. It's a very difficult place to be, and I never really thought of it like that before. And it's something I never really started to think about until we had a chance to talk to Dennehy about how there are these things and there are these places that an actor has to go. And, you know, hey, look, a carpenter goes out and he works in the cold, and it's a very difficult job. But there's no doubt that an actor has to go through like this mental anguish sometimes that's just as hard as anything else in life, you know, and it's extraordinary to me. And I have to say that, man, if you're someone that can do it well and do it good, you know, that is an extraordinary talent, Max, you know?
Doesn't make Dennehy any less of an artist, too, which is awesome, because he's such an artist.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I love his performance as Gacy so much. I feel like watching it right now. He is so... He scares the shit out of me. And I love being scared. And it's like, it's so great how, like, a Michael Rooker, you know, played Henry, and I will never forget. And I don't even know if I told this story, but super quick, I was at a mall, and and my wife and I were at the Burbank Mall, and it's during Christmas time, ironically enough. And she's in a clothing store, and I just kind of step over to look down over everyone walking, and all of a sudden I see Michael Rooker. And this was only a few years after Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer came out. And I saw it down in the New Art, and I couldn't even walk afterward. And he was dressed like Henry. I'm talking the brown jacket, the jeans that were floods with the white socks, the black shoes, the curly hair, drinking a milk. And it looked like Henry, his Henry, walking through a mall. And it was so frightening. So I think in like the echelons of actors playing real serial killers, I think Dennehy's Gacy is right up there with Michael Rooker's Henry and Jeremy Renner's Dahmer, which I think is another amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite performances. I'm so glad you said that. As a matter of fact, Max, that was one of the first films you reviewed with us, was Dahmer, starring Jeremy Renner, and it's a chilling performance. And yeah, definitely Dennehy and Rooker both do that same thing. Mark Harmon, the Deliberate Stranger. Do you guys have any love for that?
That was the Green River Killer?
That was Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy. Yeah, I remember seeing that one. That was a made-for-TV also, right?
Yes, it was, around the same time.
He's one of the more creepier ones to me, just because he was so brazen and so normal, and so just right under the radar.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to this topic of serial killing, Bundy is someone that I've always been infatuated with. I mean, we also did review, Max, if you remember the Ted Bundy movie that they made like maybe about 10 years ago, but that Matthew Bright directed, and you actually had a lot of problems with it, Max, because you were like, at times, Bright's like doing this movie like it's a Tex Avery cartoon. I think you called it. And you were like, I remember specifically, you said, listen, he's like, this guy has no right to do this. This is a serious matter. And, to try to get laughs out of a guy like Bundy is just completely unfair. You were like appalled by it. You were like, listen, if the movie, I remember this is a great quote. You're like, if the movie was called Ted Crazy Pants, I could get behind this movie. But since it's Ted Bundy, I will not have anything to do with it. But
wow, isn't it amazing how I just hear that and I'm like, who is that guy? I mean,
but it's funny though. We have talked about the subject before here on the show, and we're doing it again today, guys. Anything else you want to throw out there about To Catch a Killer before we start wrapping things up, Max or Adam?
Well, I want Adam to tell us how he watched the movie. How he.
Oh yeah, you keep saying this. What's going on, Adam?
Oh, I had to. In order to have the time to watch it, I had to watch it on my phone, streaming YouTube on my phone, in various locations with headphones in, including on my wife's birthday while she was at the salon.
Don't you think that's amazing?
It is.
But I understand. I mean, Adam is so busy; he's got so much going on. But the dude is watching this movie on his phone. I'm at the point, it's taking me this long because this is the point in my review that I can't find it anywhere else. I prefer to watch it on my big screen at home.
Me
As
too.
Tom says, did you screen To Catch a Killer? Screen it? What am I, Cecil B. DeMille.
Yeah,
but,
Martin Scorsese.
Oh, I would have preferred to have watched it on a big screen, absolutely. But
we don't have choices anymore of that.
I did actually watch.
I had to watch it on my iPad. You had to watch it on your phone.
Yeah.
I watched the first 2 hours on my phone. The last hour I did watch on my television.
I watched the first part on my laptop, and then I do have YouTube on my PlayStation 3 out in the living room, so I watched it on the big screen TV out in the living room. But it was actually better on the laptop, you know, because it was just such a shitty quality that it just didn't work, you know. But I mean, I did it anyway. There is, Max, again, $150. Someone's selling this movie for $150 on Amazon because there's no copies of this thing anywhere.
No, I've tried to buy it several times. I've tried to actually buy it. I'm always looking for it, and I'm not going to pay that for it.
No, that's ridiculous.
But I do think it's a film that, I mean, I don't know how many people care about this movie, but I just think it's so unique. And I see everything that's related to the subject matter. Everything.
Right.
I don't miss anything. I see it all. And now I'm really excited to take a look at The Deliberate Stranger because I don't think I've seen that since it aired.
You know, that's something I want to do too. He's really chilling in that movie. And again, I think The Deliberate Stranger has acts of violence in it. Not much. Definitely more than To Catch a Killer. But it's also a film, Adam, that relies heavy on the actors telling the story. That someone said earlier that the information becomes the horror. You know, the information is the way to tell the story. You know, how these things unfold. It's similar to Catch a Killer in that sense.
Yeah, I do remember that. Same thing, made for TV. I think was limited, especially when they were making these movies 20 years ago. But I do remember his performance being pretty frightening.
It's so funny because I do miss TV movies, even if they had commercials or whatever. I have not seen a TV movie in 20 years probably, and then a television event. Rosemary's Baby. Right. I watched the entire thing.
How did it play?
It wasn't great.
No.
But I love that actress. Oh no, now her name's escaping me. She's in Star Trek. She's in everything derivative. Star Trek, Rosemary's Baby. Oh no. Who am I talking about, fellas?
I don't know.
I don't know. Zoe
yes, Saldana.
Yeah.
Oh,
Zoe Saldana.
Lovely.
Beautiful. She was great. But I'm saying those television events based on true crime stuff, they never make that shit anymore.
Do they make TV movies at all anymore?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think ABC, NBC, CBS, I don't think any of them do it anymore. It seems like, look, I mean, you'll see stuff pop up on A&E probably does a ton of crap.
Lifetime.
Well, sure.
The Oprah Winfrey Network or whatever, I'm sure they do it. They probably touch upon it. But if you want to get, and I don't even know if you could even consider this TV movies, but pretty much HBO, they set the standard on everything, as far as, those real stories are concerned, But again, there's you could run those movies in any theater across the United States, and you would think that it's just a theatrical, release, with the HBO movies. But they pretty much, since they've come into play with that shit, it seems like everyone's like, we're not even going to bother competing with them, because they're just so fucking good. But I would love to see what Max is talking about, because it was like an event sometimes, and there were so many good movies that ABC.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, you would just run into so many. I just off the top of my head, I remember watching a movie where Martin Sheen is the father of this family, and he's a friggin' drunk, and his alcohol. It was called Shattered Spirits. I still remember the name of this movie, and it was a great performance by him. And it hit home a lot to me because, when I was a kid, you watch something like that with my mother being, a drinker and her boyfriend being a major alcoholic, you'd watch something like that you know, and it just really would be unsettling to sit there and watch because you're kind of like living that life as well. But they would do so many different types of movies, so many good movies. But no, I think they're out of the game now, guys.
The leader of the pack, which I actually bought, is Adam. About about John Walsh and Daniel J. Travanti.
Daniel J.
Travanti, yeah. I never saw that movie.
Well, listen, I mean, it basically created the first version of the Amber Alert. You know, the TV movie itself did, because at the end of the movie there was a very bold choice. Do we show the faces of the abducted children with their names? Yay or nay? The network says, no, that's just so grim. No. John Walsh, the father of Adam, who lost his son, said, you've got to do it. And they did, and it made history, and they made an inferior sequel, which you can see the sequel on Netflix, but you can't see the original. Yeah. But it is a superior film. Beth Williams, amazing.
I remember. What's your take on that Adam Walsh abduction being done by...
Otis Toole?
No, by... oh, my God. I'm blanking on his name. Milwaukee, the... Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh, I heard vague rumblings that Jeffrey was down in Florida at the time, but...
there is a pretty strong theory. There's a strong theory he was in that part of town, that he had the van that was seen. It's all... there's a lot of evidence that points towards it. The one thing that points away from it is that wasn't... the boy was too young for his typical abductions.
Correct.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. Otis Toole, though, that makes sense, Max.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, well, in John Walsh's book, which I read, which is a fantastic book. I've talked about... What is with us and titles?
I don't know. Everybody's blanking out today, though.
What is John Walsh's... Here it is. Tears of Rage.
That's it.
Basically, seriously... Probably the greatest true crime book outside of Helter Skelter, I would say. If you want to read a great book about a very enraged father who basically turned his whole life into finding criminals and busting them. But basically on Otis Toole's deathbed, John Walsh has come to accept the fact that Otis said, I'm the one who did it, told his niece, the niece told John Walsh. It all kind of worked out with the investigation, and that's sort of who did it. But this Dahmer theory, I think that's a movie unto itself. Coming soon to ABC, a 2-night television event. Dahmer looks for Adam. Did he or didn't he?
But that could just be a good movie, because you could make this movie where you're kind of like the family's there and Dahmer's there, and you make the movie where you're not even sure by the end of the movie if Dahmer did that or not. You know what I'm saying? Like you could hint at it. You could play with the viewer.
I would watch that movie if it was called Dahmer Silly Pants.
Oh my God, Daniel J. Travanti as John Walsh getting the news that they found his head. He's in a hotel room.
Yes.
My heart is sinking just thinking about it.
Do you remember him listening to the audio tapes?
Yes. Oh my God, Adam. Oh.
Do you remember how his nose looks something like a flaccid penis in that movie? Slightly, just slightly.
Oh my God. All right, on that note, guys, thanks a lot for taking time out doing the show To Catch a Killer. I want to thank Brian Dennehy and Michael Riley for coming on. Max, Adam, I will definitely be talking to you guys soon. The Cutting Room Movie Podcast is brought to you by Christiana Productions and New Media Limited. The show is edited and co-produced by Joseph Schreck and produced by Thomas Detloff and Joe Christiana. You could like us on Facebook at The Cutting Room Movie Podcast, and follow me on Twitter, Thomas Detloff, at TCRM Podcast. You could also check out Joe's Filmwork. He's got a brand new movie out called Meat Cycle. Check it out at ChristianaProductions.com. And check out Max and Adam's Bowler Hat Productions and their Mimosa Podcast show at MaxCookAndTheCounselor.com. Music from The Cutting Room is done by the Zillatones. Check them out at www.thezillatones.com. ReverbNation.com or search for the Zillatones at ReverbNation.com. We're still taking the summer off, but we're going to be back in September with brand new episodes, Season 4 in September. Until then, we are over and we are out. Ciao.
Try to forgive his silly little mustache. And the whole thing kind of takes on a David versus Goliath vibe by the third act. Speaking of third acts, To Catch a Killer is long. Very long. It requires a lot of patience. The pacing is slow at times, but it's deeply involved. There's a lot to follow here. And I found myself rewinding a few times because my thoughts would start to drift towards wondering how authentic this all was. Word is, it's pretty damn close based on true events. And when I say rewinding, I mean dragging my finger in reverse on my iPad. Because you see, you can't seem to find this movie anywhere but on YouTube. Unideally transferred and broken up into 2 parts. At least there's no commercials for Colgate. Believe me, I've looked for the film everywhere over the years since I first saw it when it initially aired. You can buy it on Amazon if you'd like, but then you'd be spending over $150 on a DVD. It's basically out of print, which is a total shame because it's really strong work of true crime, novel-like television, and Brian Dennehy definitely deserves better. John Wayne Gacy raped and murdered 33 boys and young men. In Japan, 33 is a sign carrying juicy, gigantic prey, and Kozenzak is, well, frankly, the Elmer Fudd here. And that's not his fault. No one suspects John as being anything but a popular, well-meaning businessman. There's little to no cooperation from the city's officials to crack this sick seducer of simpletons. Gacy relentlessly pummels the police department with threats of lawsuits. Kozenzak himself is disrespected time and time again by not only his superiors, but Gacy as well, who dismisses our mustachioed hero as a Polak countless times. Is it any wonder Kozenzak had to resort to always unnerving Margot Kidder as an eccentric psychic to save the day? Homicide investigations are tricky business. My father was a cop who studied forensic pathology, and I have the honor of possessing his notes from 1969 through 1970. I like how I felt like I was sitting in the cars in the cold at night with the cops outside of John Gacy's house around Christmas time. How I just wanted to be home with my family instead of waiting to see if this demon was for real or not, based on the willful deductions of a tiny Polish man and a pussy tickler. I was so... Serial killers. Ooh, that was the one I bought, because I wanted to get to know them all in one sitting. Maybe it wasn't the most ideal reading, since I still had overdue reports for school to complete on books like Orwell's Animal Farm and God Help Me, Hemingway's The Pearl. But fuck it, I had to find out who the hell the fat guy from Chicago was who dressed up like a kiddie party clown named Pogo and buried young men under a crawl space in his suburban house of horrors. What? He was a pillar of the community who posed for snapshots with Rosalind Carter? Get the fuck out of here, John Wayne Gacy. Oh, God, I'm John Wayne Gacy, and I'm from Chicago. Ah, jeez. What I love most about To Catch a Killer is that it absolutely puts you on the detective's team. Michael Riley's Detective Joe Kozenzak literally bends over backwards in physically painful ways to nail the local construction magnate for multiple murder. But John Gacy does not want to make himself a killer that's easy to catch. And that's why this is less a film about a sadistic lunatic on the prowl than it is about the hunt. Gacy's the smug coulrophobia, fear of clowns. Dementophobia, fear of insanity. Domatophobia, fear of houses or being in a house. Meranthrophobia, fear of being bound. Chronophobia, fear of time. Hadephobia, fear of hell. Thanatophobia, fear of death. Eric Till's 1992 made-for-TV true crime thriller To Catch a Killer prominently features what has to be Brian Dennehy's most ferocious performance ever as the forever infamous John Wayne Gacy. It is a film that capitalizes on all the aforementioned phobias and fears, and many, many more. Remember B. Dalton Bookseller? I recall going into one at the Topanga Plaza when I was in my mid-teens and immediately heading towards the true crime section for the first time. There they were, all the classics, in big, bold, red-letter titles. Helter Skelter, Wise Guy, In Cold Blood, The Stranger Beside Me, and one simply entitled, Oh, Uncomfortably Riveted, Watching John Be Inside, where it was warm, wooing awkward young men with liquor and pool and handcuff games, right under the nose and watchful eyes of the staked-out plainclothers outside. It disturbed me how ballsy Gacy was with his prey, practically dangling imminent danger like a blood-stained lion circling a pack of zebras in front of a safari jeep, the jeep being full of windy city wiseacres, hardened by their devotion to the law, who had seen it all and just wanted to shoot the damn beast and save these young, stupid, stripy studs from the fate of maggots eating out their assholes well beneath Gacy's floorboards. But it was not an easy investigation. In fact, it was one of the most complex of all time, and it was fast-paced. Brian Dennehy earned an Emmy nod for his performance, and it could not be more well-deserved. He is terrifying, a dark god clad in leather blazers and bourbon breath. He's so full of ruse and lies you can't take your eyes off him because he's selling the truth so hard that he's a misunderstood man of innocence. Riley does a fantastic job, too.